Hello, everyone. This is Tommi Vincent, your host of In Her Words, a Tommi Vincent podcast. And today we have joining us at the table is Anna Isaacson. And Anna is, let me just share with you some of her highlights because she has been doing phenomenal things in her body of work. But a few are this: she is the Senior Vice President of Social Responsibility for the National Football League. She oversees the work of the NFL Foundation, and she is responsible for developing and directing corporate social responsibility activities at NFL Draft, Kickoff, Pro Bowl, and the Super Bowl. Anna, welcome to the table.
Thank you, Tommy. Nice to be here.
So let me start out with my very first question for you. And if you could, in your own words, who is Anna Isaacson?
Um, I am a passionate person who has a deep, I have a deep love of family and fiercely loyal person. When I was in sixth grade, my English teacher asked us to pick one word, like one characteristic about us, and write a magazine all about that. And mine was called The Loyal Ledger
Wow.
at age 12. So I am, that is me. I have always had a passion for sport and not for playing, so not an athlete, but for watching as a fan, honestly, and
Hmm.
for understanding the impact that sports has on people and on community and on the history of our country and broader. And so that's really been a passion of mine from a young age. And so I've tried to sort of work that into my day job in the best way that I can, sort of fitting in this passion for sport and its impact on community. And the loyalty piece probably is why I've been here 17 seasons. Um, but that's who I am. I'm passionate about what I do and passionate about people and community.
Hmm. So your career is heavy laden with giving back to community. Do you recall when the seed was planted that now has blossomed into such meaningful and powerful work?
I think it was early. My parents were always the type that gave back in our community. Um, just from a young age, I don't think I mean, I'm sure that in their heads they knew they were setting an example, but they always were kind of the type of people to give of themselves, give of their time, give of what they had in their pocket to various organizations. And I think that planted a seed very, very early that this type of work is critical and important. And there's something that's bigger than just us
Hmm.
and sort of who's in front of us directly, but that we have to see beyond that in order to see humanity and to have empathy for other people. And so I definitely came from my parents and probably from their parents before them.
Hmm. Yeah, I can totally relate to that. I grew up in a family where, my grandmother was the director at a community center. My mom, at one point in time, she was a director for an organization that was doing work in the community. So, with that being said, we just grew up watching this taking place
Hmm.
in front of us and going and volunteering and do the things that were necessary at those community centers. So it became second nature. It was just how we lived. And so even as an adult, um, I didn't even think about it. It just was just something like, this is just what we do. And I'm really grateful that my life partner, that he grew up in that same type of environment. So we're lockstep in, wanting and desiring to not only create better life for our children, but we also are vested in seeing the lives of others have the opportunity, because he and I are both beneficiaries of community. And so I totally get that. And a lot of people that I talk to, that are involved in community work, they have that same example growing up, and it just kind of just started the trajectory of where they are today and sowed that seed.
Yeah, and I can remember, as a young girl, my parents were very active in our local synagogue, and like I used to sit in on the sisterhood meetings that my mom would go to. And in the probably this was like in the 80s, there was a big influx from the Soviet Union of Russian Jewry who were essentially not free, and my family, was instrumental in sort of welcoming those people to the United States, and acting as adopted family and adopted community and welcoming them in, and those types of experiences and moments. I think they just sit with you and they carry on, like you said. You don't necessarily realize in the moment what's happening, but I found myself in high school and then in college, same thing, like just contributing in all sorts of different ways back to community, whatever community I found myself in, looking for those opportunities to go sort of outside school and outside sort of my daily role. And I don't think I realized I could do that for a living. It never occurred to me until after college, honestly, that I could sort of combine sport and a passion for giving back into a career. I think now it's much more commonplace, but back then I'm lucky that I sort of fell into it because I did not see how I could possibly combine those two things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Positive social impact and change is a marathon, not a sprint. How are you defining success, and has your definition changed over the course of your body of work?
It's a good question. I think change takes time and making an impact takes time. And I think at the NFL, we are so lucky that we have this massive platform that so many people are paying attention and watching, and we have the ability to move the needle where so many other people and other organizations don't, because they don't have the platform we have. And so that's very special and not to be taken for granted and to be used wisely. But it still takes time. So even though you get a message out to the tens of millions of people who are watching a game on any given Sunday, change takes time and real societal issues take time. And so I think everyone's always looking for sort of the quick fix, and how do we solve a problem really quickly? But most of the problems that we're looking to solve took a long time to evolve, and they're not going to end immediately. And I think, sometimes the expectations on the NFL are really high. Um, and that can be daunting because there's an expectation that we're going to make significant change and that people are watching. But I think one of the things I've learned is that you have to stick with things. You can't expect a quick fix or a quick return. And convincing our leadership that when you get involved in an issue, you stay in that issue. Doesn't mean you necessarily stay forever, but you have to see it through. You can't get discouraged after 1 year if you don't see the exact change that you're looking for. You have to see things through and commit for the long term. And that makes you more authentic, and it makes people believe in you, and it makes people want to join what you're doing. And then you see the rewards, but it takes some time, right? And, issues like social justice and domestic violence and sexual violence, these are really hard issues that didn't just come about yesterday, right? Like, and thinking that we're going to solve it is, not a fair expectation to put on our shoulders. What we can do, though, is be a leader, have a big seat at the table, and invite others to join us as we approach really complicated issues and say, okay, we're playing our role. We have a role in this, but so do you, and so does everybody else. And the only way we're going to fix these real systemic problems is if people join us at the table and they stay with us there. And the hope is that that happens for a lot of key issues, and we stay with some of these tough topics that we've taken on as a league.
Hmm. Yeah, I say, like our ability to positively impact community is one person at a time. And so it can become very discouraging when you know the amount of effort and time and resources that are going into what it is that you're doing, and then a there's voices and there's chatter indicating something different. And but you know the work that is taking place and the amount of time that is being invested to create change, and you'll never be able to convince everyone of that. Like I get, especially people who are experiencing what it is you're working to move the needle on, who haven't been experiencing it for a very long time. It feels like, no, I need it now. You don't understand. This for me is life or death. And being committed, even with the pressure from both sides, is not an easy thing. And so I can imagine that there has to be an internal barometer of success so that you can encourage yourself to stay, on the wall and continue to do the work that you're doing.
I think that's a really good and accurate point. I think, and as sort of the leader of the social responsibility team, I feel responsibility to keep my team motivated, right? Because they can get down and feel a little bit of the take it personally, some of the criticism or the expectations that are just that we can't meet all the time. And part of what we try to do as sort of a team is encourage each other, root each other on, celebrate the wins, whether they're small, middle, medium, or big, and
Absolutely.
acknowledge that the work is hard, right? And not get too caught up in what the media is saying or what any one person is saying. Um, but if you do the work with integrity and you have an agenda that is not your own, right? That is beyond yourself. It tends to keep you on a pretty straight path, right? Like remind yourself you're doing this for a broader reason. It's a bigger goal. It's not about me or my team or my work or like it's about the work and the impact that we can have. And we are just sort of a vehicle to getting that work done. And celebrate those small steps. When you get an email from an organization that tells you how meaningful the investment has been for them, when you hear the story of an individual person that has been helped, those are the things that carry me. I know they carry our team for months and through lots of bad and challenging times, right? Like we work on cancer, we work on military, we do lots of things. And the story you hear of the woman whose life was saved because she saw a crucial catch commercial, or, the family that was moved because you honored them, in their moment of loss, or, someone who spent 37 years in jail with an incredibly ridiculous sentence who we were able to help get out, and live the rest of his life as a free person. Those things like make the hair stand up right on the back of your neck, and then they carry you for a really long time, even through all the like crazy NFL drama that
Hmm.
surrounds us always.
Hmm.
And I try to focus there because if I let all the crazy in, it can overtake your life.
Hmm. Hmm. In your current position, you direct the league's social, charitable, and philanthropic efforts. What has been your greatest reward in leading these efforts to date? And what are some of the challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome them?
The reward is sort of like what we just talked about. It's the wins, the little wins, and some big wins, but mostly it's the little wins that you remember. Um, and I've been so fortunate to now be at the league for a long time and to really be in the middle of the growth of our community and social responsibility work. And so I kind of like I don't have a favorite. I really am passionate and look at all of our initiatives and feel so strongly about each of them for different reasons. And so they're all rewarding in different ways, right? And there's moments in each of them that I can point to that sort of carry me. The challenges are real. We can't be all things to everybody. It's really hard to tell someone who is in crisis or dealing with an issue or disease that their disease or issue isn't one you can take on right now. And that doesn't minimize anything that someone's going through, but it's going to be most important for them. And we still have to make decisions that we think are best for the league and for the NFL as a whole. And sometimes that is really tough. And it's hard to say no to people who really deserve help. And so, we try to use our platform in multiple ways, big and small, to share the love as best as we can. But it's a challenge. It's a real challenge. I think the other big challenge that we've experienced is like we're under a microscope. Everybody is looking at what we do and what we say and our actions and our words, and they're holding us accountable, which they should. But we are definitely, it feels like under a bigger microscope than a lot of other organizations. And, as much as everyone loves us, there's like a love to hate thing sometimes going on. Which, it's hard. Like when you're doing this work, you're doing it because you believe in it and it's the right thing. And when people come out and criticize or say you don't really care or you're not doing enough, you've got to have fortitude and a backbone, right? And that my skin has become much thicker since I started working for the National Football League, right? I try really hard not to take things personally. There is so much going on, at any one time. You have to have a voice. You have to stand up because when people are kind of chiming in on all sides and everyone believes that they have a stake in you, you've got to find your like North Star and stick with it. And that's not always, well, that's hard. And that's been hard for us. It's been hard for us as a league to do that, right? And to have conviction. And we need more conviction. So I think we've made a lot of progress in that area, but it's hard and it's a challenge for us, and one that I think we work on all the time is, like this is who we are, this is who we say we are, these are the actions that we're going to take and back them up. And, you're not going to please everyone, but you're going to please people who are doing the right thing and share your values. And that's most important.
So let me ask you this, and as you're talking, this just keeps coming up inside of me in regards to you, your team, and the partners that you all have aligned with for the work that you're doing. Do you ever take the moment? I know you acknowledge the wins and you celebrate, but do you ever take the moment to sit in the fact that the body of work is history? So forever it will be in the history books. You have been a part of matters that, you know, you're on the forefront of matters where the impact, the work that you're doing, that it is literally history. Do you ever think about that and just not that like it's you're tooting your own horn or, but the fact, just the weight of that is so powerful.
Um, it was a deep sigh. You know, I think it's scary to think about it too much. because I think that can sometimes lead you down a road where your decision making might be impacted, right? If you're thinking only in those terms. Um, when we're dealing on issues of race and racism and things that our country is grappling with, I do think about what is our legacy going to be in the history books, and what is history going to say about the impact that we had. I do think about that. I don't think about it as my role in it. I think about what are the books. I'm a history person, and I was a history major in college, and just always been fascinated by history, American history in particular. And I do think about what we're going to look like in those books years from now, knowing what a big cultural footprint we have and the impact that we have. I do think and want, obviously, people to down the line take away that we're an authentic and committed organization and spent the vast majority of our time outside of playing football games doing things that were right for the community. Um, and while I certainly hope that's reflected, um, we haven't always made the right decisions, right? And I that's okay. To me, it's like, all right, if you didn't make the right decision in the moment, how did you come around and fix it? How did you learn from it? How did you grow from it? And be able to use those past decisions to impact how you operate in the future. And I hope that history sort of reflects the full story, right? And where we didn't get it right, where we did, great, awesome. Where we didn't, um, that the full story of sort of how we reacted and rebounded is shared, because I think there's been a lot of work at the league and at the clubs to, you know, focus on what's right. And though we don't always get there and we don't always achieve our goals, there's a big focus on doing the right thing for the fans that spend lots of time and money supporting us. And and I've said this before, but like, we have an obligation and a responsibility to support the communities that sustain us as a league, as clubs. We will be nothing if not for the communities around us. That's the entirety of our existence, is our fans, is people who believe in us as members of a community who root for their team. And if we don't take that responsibility to give back, whose job is it, right? Like, who will, and who will? And I think our leadership believes that. I think they believe that at the core, and that's why I've been able to do a lot over the last decade and a half, because I think our leadership believes that that's our role.
Yeah, and in addition to, I'm familiar with My Cause, My Cleats. And so there's the partnership that you all have with, the players from the different clubs who are in communities and who have areas of passion and giving back for, things that they're passionate about. And that's like, so you have this like, this net of community that you all are servicing, from the fans to the players and the communities that, and the work in the community that they are passionate about, and that means a great deal to them. So there's a lot being covered in what you all are focusing on. And and like you said, you won't get it all right, but the mere fact that there is, and as I'm talking to you and I'm hearing you as the leader of this work, it's very clear that you're extremely intentional and that you're processing a lot of things to arrive at the decisions that are being made. And so that gives me hope for the work that you all will continue to do in community, and, making the positive impact that you are making today.
Well, thank you for that. We've got a small but mighty team. And I think in order to work in social responsibility, I always, it's funny because we don't get to hire a lot of people, but on the job descriptions that we put out, and it's always like, what kind of characteristics in a person are you looking for, right? And I feel like I always have these things that no other job description would have, like, you know, passion and energy and like, I don't need you to have like deep financial skills, right? Like I need you to feel it. I need you to feel it at your core and like commit yourself to this work. Otherwise, people will see through you. They will know it. They will spot you out and it won't work, right? So that's, we have a team that I believe is made up of those type of people who are committed to the work and recognize the position that we're in to be able to achieve things, and then and sort of crave that. Like I always say, it's like a little bit like an addiction, the doing good thing. Like you like get a high from it, and then you want more of it and you don't want to stop, right? Like when you hear an amazing story or you impact someone's life, like it's just like nothing like it, right? So you just want to do that again and again and again. And I think my team feels that like I do. And so I go, okay, we don't want to do anything else. We don't want to work in another space because this is where we're like sleeping really well at night, you know? So thank you.
Hmm. Absolutely. So you're a mother of two, and your wife. How have you managed this work and your family life so that you're having success on all fronts?
I mean, sometimes I think I'm doing it poorly. I mean, everyone at the NFL knows my son Theo, and not because I bring him to the office, but because over COVID, he showed up on every single Zoom call and every owners meeting and every like he was like attached to my hip at 4.5 years old, and I could not do anything about it, right? So, I think people know that I'm a human, right? And they know that I'm reliable. And so I will get back to you and respond, even though I have two kids and and a family. Um, and so that goes a long way. And I get some leeway on the like screaming kids in the background or like Zoom bombs and, working from home a little bit more often, right? So I think people know that I'm in it to win it, right? Like I'm committed and I'm going to be there and I'm going to show up when you need me. But I'm also going to be honest and tell you when my kids are sick or like this week when I have no childcare because my nanny had twins and my two backup nannies have COVID. So I'm like head ex- head exploding. But you just have to figure out a way, right? So it's like, my mom moved in for a couple of days. It's like, it's crazy, right? It's like but so I don't think I've done a great job of balancing for myself. Like I think I'm stressed out a lot. I don't have like hobbies like I probably should. Um, that's just the honest truth. But, every kind of spare moment I'm with my family. So I don't really have time for hobbies because it's like work and family. And that's okay for me right now. I don't miss the hobbies. My kids are 7 and 2 and they are busy and active and keep me on the move with their activities. So work fills up the rest for sure.
Hmm. Listen, I don't know Theo, but let me tell you, I feel like I love this kid, because that would be like the highlight of my day. Theo's appearances on the Zooms. I'm just saying.
I mean, if when he grows up and I remind him of this, he's going to be mortified. Um, and my daughter, who's only 2, will have like a totally different life experience because she was like born during COVID and won't remember
Yeah.
any of it. But but my son, man, whew, um, he he's made a lot of people laugh, right? So like, great, that's great. And if we can all, be human first, then we've achieved something. And he's 7, he's still cute, not quite as cute maybe as he was when he was 4.5, but um, you know, they keep us busy.
So let's move on to our next segment. And this segment is I'm bringing her to the table with me. And this is your opportunity to give verbal flowers to another woman whose fingerprint is on your career, for you know you would not be where you are today without her.
Um, it's a really, it's a good one. It's interesting. I was thinking about this question, and I only started having female bosses recently in the sports world, which I guess is not that surprising, right? That 20 years ago, more than that, it just wasn't a thing. So, I was thinking about like who, from a woman perspective, and there's this woman that was not a boss of mine or a supervisor, but her name was Ernestine Miller, Ernie, for short, and she was somebody I met when I worked in minor league baseball, and I was working at like a 15-person short season minor league team, doing a gazillion things, like making $20,000 a year, and like thinking I was like in a career, but also kind of feeling like this was like, what am I doing, in minor league baseball? And she was like a legit person who had a career in sports and was a writer, and I worked in baseball, and she had written a ton about Babe Ruth and in baseball, and she came to visit me. She heard about some work I was doing at this museum, and we had a small gallery at my first job at this minor league team, all about the history of baseball in Brooklyn and Jackie Robinson. And she heard about it, and she came to visit. And in visiting, she kind of like made me realize that what I was doing was actually legit, like it was real. It wasn't like a joke or like a hobby, right? Like it was a career and professional, and she raised it up for me a notch and legitimized it by basically her her taking the time to come up, to another state to kind of see my space and to visit, to talk to me, to give me guidance. And she at the time, which I didn't know, was a one of the sort of active board members of WISE, Women in Sports and Events, and introduced me to the organization. And I've been a member ever since, and have met a ton of people, and it's a much bigger organization now. But I often we're not in the most touch. Once in a while we connect, but I always think about that, her role and sort of her continued presence, because probably didn't know it at the time, but her sort of being present with me in that space made me feel like, gave me the confidence that I needed to think that I was credible, and to keep going, right? And to keep pushing. And so she's someone that I would shout out and give a hug and some flowers to.
Okay, so now we're moving into our final segment, which is Food is Love. What food best describes your personality and why?
So I love salad, but I also think it represents me pretty well. Salad is like, it's like of the earth, right? Like it's earthy, and and real, right? It's like it's authentic, it's healthy, and it gets you where you need to go. And I feel like for me, I pride myself on being like a moral person of like, you know, high character, and what you see is what you get, right? There's no like hidden crap. And, sometimes it could be a little rough, like salad, like a little, if you don't clean it enough. And maybe that's some of the Brooklyn in me is, can be a little rough, but all sort of the good intentions, right? Like this sort
Mm-hmm.
of at the base, I'm there to kind of get you stable, get you healthy. I care about like your health and your well-being, and with a little salad dressing, I taste really good.
I love it. I love it. Has food ever been healing for you?
For sure. For sure it has. Food has like been a big part of my family culture, I think. So that's sort of a piece of it, that there's foods that I think about and they bring me back to different moments in time and in life and in family. But then also in challenges, I think we tend to sort of give ourselves the ability to eat when things aren't going so well. And I've definitely been through a bunch of struggles on the fertility side, and every time I think I had a setback there, it was sort of like out for Haagen-Dazs. So definitely been healing.
Final question. Does your family have an heirloom recipe that has been passed down from generation to generation?
We do. I'm Jewish, and we have a couple. I would say the most interesting one is chopped liver, which, like, maybe most people don't have like a natural, affection for. But my grandmother and my great aunt were like expert at, frying it with onions, and just you eat it with a little bit of a pickle from Brooklyn on some rye bread. And it's really awesome. And then, when my great aunt passed and my grandmother passed at 100, we were like, oh my God, we got the recipe, but who's going to do this? And my aunt and my cousin have sort of taken it on and do a pretty damn good job of keeping up the recipe. And even my brother is like pretty impressed, right? And he'll come in for it, but you have to have like the slice of pickle and the rye bread. And it just, we'll have it like as an appetizer for Thanksgiving, or whether it's a Jewish holiday or an American holiday, it doesn't matter. But that's probably the most kind of interesting one, I would say.
So I have really enjoyed our conversation, and it was a joy speaking with you. And I'm still chuckling on the inside about Theo, but I'm really grateful that you took me up on the opportunity to come and stay a while at the In Her Words table. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you joining me. Just know that you are welcome anytime. And how can people um, see and stay connected with the work that you're doing through the NFL, the platform there?
Um, well, in a couple of ways. We've got a decent website, NFL.com/community, that highlights everything we do across the board. We create an annual report every year that showcases the accomplishments of the past year, and you can find that on the site. And also, you can find links to all of our various campaign sites. So we've got an Inspire Change site and a Crucial Catch site, and we put everything on there. We've got sort of NFL Foundation has its own website, nflfoundation.org. We've got social media handles around NFL in the community. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can stay connected to everything that the league is doing off the field.
Thank you. So thank you again. And like I said, you are welcome anytime.
Thank you for having me, Tommy. I will definitely want to come back to the table.